Testing. Good evening. At 6 p.m., I'm calling to order the City Council meeting for October 10th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Thompson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes,
Here.
Councilmember Hinton, Councilmember Corey,
Here.
Councilmember Rick,
Here.
Councilmember Applegate,
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Present.
6 members present, and Councilmember Hinton did notify staff of his absence.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item 4.1, presentations. The first presentation is an update from PPIR and a donation to Shield 616. Mr. Racine.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here today just to talk about some fundraising that took place down at PPIR during Hot Rod Rock and Rumble this year. I'd like to introduce PPIR staff and Marcy with Shield 616. So this year, they developed a pinstriping contest where the officers assisted at, I guess, just a live bidding process, an auction, and together with the items, they raised $7,175.50 to be donated to Shield 616, then in turn to be used for firefighters and officers in the area.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much.
And I'd just like to give them a
appreciate
few
that.
minutes so they
Yes.
can talk about it and talk about some of the events also at PPIR.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Matt. My name's Joe Garoni. I'm the COO for the Speedway, the racetrack. And I got to tell you, we're not, a lot of people don't really know what the racetrack's about down there. There was a day when they had NASCAR down there. It was real popular, of course, and then it's been kind of quiet after an event like that, right? And we do a lot of events that are smaller, grassroots events, in particular with motorsports, but then we got on to adding music together with the car culture. You get a car culture, people really close to a particular model of cars, and they have car clubs, and that always fits in a certain amount of years, and then you get the music that was around those years, and you put them all together, make it 3 days, and you do lifestyle events during the days that match all the cultures, and you got a whole group of people that get along and really enjoy the whole culture for a weekend. And that's what we do on our bigger events, and we have a lot of smaller events. But what happens on those events is it opens up some opportunities to be able to do the things like we're doing here. And having pinstripe, which back in the day was a big deal to have hand pinstripes on your car. I remember it myself. And then having them put those up for auction and then be able to turn it around to first responders through Shield 616 is just, it really feels good to be able to do that and contribute back. We also did a really cool event with Scott's group. It helped with our first, as a sanctioning body, motorsports event that was also a little bit of entertainment. We had a drone show, fireworks show, and we invited the residents of Fountain out for the fireworks show on PPIR. It was really a good deal. We take those things away because of fires and stuff, and then don't give them a place to go back to. So it was received really well. It was a lot of fun. So we're going to do that again this year too, and try and expand the messaging and the size of it. So we really appreciate you guys. And at this time, Marcy, I'd like to present you with this check and Shield 616. Which way?
Let's do it this way so they can take a picture.
There you go.
Matt, come on over in the picture with us.
I'll jump in. Thank you so much.
Hey, come on in. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Matt.
Sorry to take up any more time, but I just want to know if council had any questions for PPIR staff or the police department in regards to the events or anything like that?
I'd like to thank you again for pulling off the 4th of July event. I know that was like pretty last minute, and it was very awesome. It was astounding. We came down there and had a really, really good time, so thank you for that. And then I was really excited to see on Facebook that you're bringing back the Christmas light thing that was extremely popular last year. And so thank you for that. But to make the 4th of July free for the citizens of Fountain was above and beyond, so thank you very much for that. And I believe Councilmember Estes would like to say something.
I'm going to chime in on the 4th of July. I was able to attend, and it was awesome. I got to take my cousins with us, and they're just total car fanatics. They were so excited. So I think I've kind of turned them on to your venue, and so they're looking for events there. And then I have cousins that come clear from the San Luis Valley for events there, and they love it. So we really appreciate you being part of our Fountain family.
Well, thank you very much. I got to tell you, it's a family, because we couldn't have done that event the way we did it without Scott and his support and his group, so, and all of you behind him. So thank you, and expect more. The future's great. We're going to expand that Christmas show, so look for some better things coming.
All right, and Councilmember Corey?
I have to ask, are you going to ever bring back Pikes Peak Bike Week? Because when you guys had those big name artists back in 2017, I mean, that was.
Ouch. Police department is against that.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
gonna say,
no, that's fair. That's a fair
Did you catch Matt's face?
I wasn't here for that, but I've heard about it,
We
so
don't talk about that event.
I think there's got to be a way to do it, but
But
we
just
don't
the
talk about
the
it.
lineup in general, I mean, the name of the artists that they had coming, I mean, that was incredible. I mean, so an event similar to that, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be centered on the bikes, so you don't get
In all
like,
seriousness,
Yeah.
an event similar to that is keywords. We're working on an event right now that would bring, to celebrate motorcycles, but it would be a different than that. It'll be better, actually. There you go. Yeah, I think Matt will support it. Yeah. I mean, and look, the relationship with PD, I can't say enough about them. It's truly like a family, and he says jump, we jump, because we know we're not the smartest people in the room, that's for sure. And he has brains. It's like, so.
You also need to say that, obviously, you know, Fountain PD and Fountain Fire also do a great job for us. They're almost at every single event we have. Obviously, Fountain Fire, you guys do a really good job for us. Matt and his guys do a great job, so we really appreciate all that help too.
Absolutely.
Could we have Shield 616 just share just a little bit, because maybe not everybody in the room is familiar with your organization and what you do. Oh, watch out, he's got your check.
Got the big check.
Okay.
So Shield 616 provides all-day rifle-rated armor to first responders in need, and we partner with local businesses and churches to find donations to help fund this. So working with PPIR to do this, they care so deeply about, as you heard, their first responders, and they want to keep them safe and better protected. So it's a great partnership for us as well as the officers, and we are so grateful for businesses like that, and we would like to continue to help Fountain PD and Fountain Fire to get upgraded protection. So when we can partner with businesses, it's really helpful. So I left some brochures on the back table for anyone that maybe has not heard of Shield 616. If you want to grab a brochure, you can take one. But we just wanted to extend our thanks to PPIR and to the Fountain community and Fountain PD for all that you do for the community.
And since this is taped and goes up on YouTube for citizens to review, what's your webpage really quick?
Yes, absolutely. It's shield616.org. So SHIELD 616.org. And you can find out all kinds of information about what we're doing for not just Fountain, but other departments in Colorado and across the U.S.
All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you, PPIR, for
Thank you.
partnering with our agencies.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Estes, I believe this next one is from you, a proclamation recognizing October as Code Enforcement Month.
Okay, the proclamation declaring henceforth the month of October will be recognized as Code Enforcement Month. Whereas Colorado code enforcement officials are dedicated, well-trained, and highly responsible individuals who are committed to improving neighborhoods in the course of their daily duties. And whereas many dedicated officials provide for the safety, health, and welfare of our citizens through the enforcement of codes and ordinances in the areas of building, zoning, housing, and fire safety, among others. And whereas the Colorado Association of Code Enforcement Officials provides valuable training to enhance the professionalism and consistency of Colorado's code enforcement efforts. And whereas for 3 decades, the member of CACEO have been dedicated to working closely with the state of Colorado to serve the people of Colorado, and whereas officers work together to improve the quality of life in communities across Colorado. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Fountain, Colorado does hereby proclaim October Code Enforcement Month, done this 10th day of October 2023. And I also have a statement to read.
Okay?
Tish. On September 14th, our code enforcement team, consisting of Officer Cornella, Officer Stevens, and Officer Eckhart, were on call for service when a call from dispatch came over the radio advising that at the neighboring address there was an unresponsive male who was not conscious and not breathing. Officer Cornella and the team immediately went to the address, entered the premises, and began CPR on the resident. Due to the CPR that was given, the patient began breathing and started to come back to consciousness. At that point, emergency medical services with the Fountain Fire Department arrived and ultimately transported the patient to the hospital where he was able to be treated by medical personnel where he was in critical but stable condition. A huge thank you and recognition to our code enforcement team for quickly responding and taking care of one of our citizens in their time of need. We honor them during this proclamation of October as Code Enforcement Month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Hang on. Just want to, I know, you can't quite yet. Thank you guys for all you do, and especially, that incident right there. A lot of people stand around and don't know what to do, and thank you for stepping in and assisting one of our citizens in their time of need, and you weren't even on the family is very grateful to you, I'm sure. And I thank you for everything you do. I know you guys have a tough job. It seems like at any time, this time of year, you have about 300 outstanding cases, and that's a big order for you guys to carry, so thank you for doing that with the professionalism that you do that. Does anybody else have any? Councilmember Duncan.
Okay. Yes, I just want to say that, what you're looking at are well-trained individuals. They're not just people you call when you're mad with your neighbors. They have to be able to read blueprints, drawings, and understand building systems. They have to understand plumbing, electric, heating, and air conditioning. And they may have to deal with parking, animal, zoning, health, housing, property maintenance, business licensing, stormwater issues, and building codes. So we just want to say thank you. You're not just people we call when we mad with our neighbors, that there is a lot of experience behind you guys coming out. And we appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you very much. I believe that there's some people who want to take some photos.
Yes.
Your dad, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, husband.
Mayor, can I say something while they're getting their photos taken? I had the opportunity to watch the video of that incident, their body-worn camera video, and I'm telling you, I was impressed with these folks. They jumped right in immediately. You could tell the adrenaline was going, heavy breathing, but it was just amazing how quickly they got on that scene. And, thank goodness they were right next door when the call came in. They were able to get over there and take care of it and help that gentleman. And I mean, I was just in awe. So thank you guys very much. You guys were rock stars in my book. Appreciate it.
Mayor, can I make a comment too? Like Mr. Trainer, I got to review the film, and kudos to the team. You guys did a great job reviewing that. It did certainly line up with the story the video did, and so you guys did a fantastic job. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. That takes us to update on Environmental Services Agreement, ESA, with the U.S. Air Force for mitigation of PFAS contaminated groundwater. Mr. Murphy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and the public. I'm Taylor Murphy. I'm the Water Resources and Engineering Manager for the city's Utilities Department. We're in the very fortunate position that it's been a while since we've had to talk about PFAS. Tonight, we'd just like to give you guys an informational update on where we stand with PFAS and some recent developments relating to it as far as Air Force support for the city. So just to begin with, I'm going to give you guys a bit of background information for those that may not be as familiar with Fountain's history of PFAS and the Air Force partnership that we've created through that. So really just at a high level, I want to give you an overview of what an ESA is. It's an environmental services agreement. It effectively functions like a contract. The Air Force basically hires the city to perform the services for the removal and mitigation of PFAS. We have on staff very highly qualified, certified water treatment operators. They're the best equipped to really run these types of facilities that the Air Force has implemented. It's much easier for the city and the Air Force if they leave that task to us to manage our own water. And the Air Force acknowledges their responsibility in this matter. And so through this ESA, the city is contracted to provide the services to treat the water. The Air Force reimburses the city for the cost of those services. So they are offsetting and subsidizing the city's expenses to remove these contaminants. The reason the Air Force is in this position of responsibility is that the PFAS contamination underneath Fountain and our groundwater was traced back to the use of aqueous firefighting foam for training at Peterson, previously Air Force Base, now Space Force Base. And so this was considered by the DoD to be an off-site release of contaminants. They are authorized through CERCLA, you may also know it as the Superfund Act, and the DERP Act, to take actions to address and mitigate off-base releases of these contaminants. And then one important note I want to make with these ESAs is that the Air Force funding through this ESA is tied to contaminant traces at 70 parts per trillion for the two primary compounds, PFOS and PFOA. I'll touch on that in a second, but that's an important number to remember. So just a quick history of PFOS and Fountain. I'll go through this very quickly. We first tested for PFOS in 2013 when the EPA required water systems to start testing for contaminants they thought might pose health risks, but there wasn't enough science around to really know what the impacts were. Our water did test positive for it, but at that time, there was really a vacuum of information. We didn't know what these compounds were, what they did, at what levels they could be dangerous. All we knew was that they were there. There was no further information. The EPA used the subsequent few years to study these compounds, and in May of 2016, they came out with a lifetime health advisory stating that based on their science, they felt that if you had PFOS at concentrations above 70 parts per trillion for the two primary compounds, PFOS and PFOA, that could lead to health risks over a lifetime of exposure. Well, Fountain's water was above the 70 parts per trillion threshold, and so we immediately shut off our groundwater wells. We didn't know how high it had been for how long. We had just gotten word of this. Many of you that lived here probably recall that time. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of concern and panic. During the height of that, the Air Force stepped up in a huge way and committed to resolving this and providing for safe drinking water for the people of the Fountain Valley. Fast forward to 2018, the Air Force delivered 2 temporary treatment facilities for the city of Fountain, one located at Auga Park, one just here behind us at the library. And that's when we entered into our first ESA with the Air Force. That ESA was to subsidize the city's costs for running those 2 temporary facilities. And that ESA was to remain in effect for as long as our groundwater before treatment remained at 70 parts per trillion. So that ESA persisted to 2021. At that point in time, our groundwater naturally fell below that 70 parts per trillion threshold, and the ESA was terminated. We stopped receiving Air Force subsidies for our costs of water treatment. In late 2021, we executed a separate ESA with the Air Force. This was to fund the building around the treatment plant for the new facility that is located at Auga Park. And then just another key date, that facility came online last October and has been treating water to non-detect levels since it came online. So now let's go to why I'm here tonight. We're just giving you an informational update of recent developments and what we are working on with the Air Force. So this past summer, around the June-July timeframe, one of our wells crept back up over that 70 parts per trillion threshold for PFOS and PFOA. The Air Force conducts quarterly testing on Fountain's behalf. We also perform our own testing. We both detected this. We performed subsequent testing, and we confirmed that this was in fact true. Our PFOS levels were creeping back up. We do want to stress that despite these levels rising, all of that water is still treated at the facility. All of the drinking water coming out of Fountain's groundwater wells is still treated and served at non-detect levels of PFOS, despite these raw water levels increasing. These are levels before it reaches the treatment. And so with them creeping back over 70 parts per trillion, the Air Force reached back out and indicated they were willing to execute a new ESA with the city of Fountain to subsidize our costs for as long as our wells remained above the 70 parts per trillion level. We negotiated the terms. They are largely consistent with the previous ESAs that we had in effect from 2018 to 2021. They cover a variety of things such as our staff O&M and labor, sampling costs for PFOS testing, replacement of media that's been expended treating the PFOS, utility costs at the building, and other support costs. There are some other key considerations that are important to note with this ESA. It only reimburses expenses incurred after October 1st this month. This is because the federal government and the DoD operate on an October to October fiscal year. They could not receive any funding authorization for prior expenses before October 1st when their 2023-2024 budget started. This ESA is in effect for 2 years or until our groundwater drops back below that 70 parts per trillion. So we will be actively monitoring to ensure that we either have lower concentrations or this ESA remains in effect for that full period. And then I just want to stress that really to show how significant of a contribution this is from the Air Force to help the utilities treat and mitigate this PFOS. This ESA is written to cap the first year reimbursement up to $268,000 worth of expenses. That number was negotiated and worked out between us and the Air Force staff. We believe that will cover and exceed all of the costs we expect to incur at the new facility related to PFOS treatment. In the second year, that will cover up to $500,000 in mitigation. That number is higher because we expect to have a costly change out of our new ion exchange media. But I just want to stress that this is a huge contribution by the Air Force to help really mitigate and correct this PFOS problem. And these expenses more than cover what we anticipate needing to spend at that facility to keep treating our water. I do want to touch just on a few points of negotiation we had with the Air Force through this process, just for council and the public's information. As I noted before, we requested that they reimburse us back to the first time our new wells creeped over that 70 parts per trillion. Unfortunately, we were pushed back on that really because of the budgeting limitations the Air Force has to adhere to as a federal entity. One key piece that we've really pushed on over the past few years with these various ESAs is that they are all written to this 70 parts per trillion health advisory level. That is a number that was generated in 2016. That number was superseded in 2022 by a much lower health advisory level. It dropped from 70 to 0.004. The problem that we have is that the Air Force and our partners at Peterson, they are only authorized to expend funds based on internal DoD policy. That policy always lags behind new EPA regulations. They can only react to what the EPA promulgates. They can't work concurrently with the EPA. As the EPA is developing regulations, the DoD cannot at the same time work on their own policies. They are required to wait until the EPA implements something, then they react, create their plans, issue an internal policy, and then they can then appropriate funding for it. Our hope is that in the future, as these levels for PFOS and PFOA are decreased by the EPA and set at regulatory limits, the DoD's policies will then catch up, and that will trigger a higher likelihood that the Air Force funding will always be in effect regardless of what Fountain's wells are. So that is something we will monitor and keep pushing. But at this point in time, they are only authorized through their current policy to have that trigger of 70 parts per trillion kick in for the Air Force funding. And then the last item we asked for was an automatic renewal of the ESA. As I stated, right now, the best they can do is a 2-year term based on their budget cycle, but that is another item that we will keep pushing for. If we have PFAS stay persistent in our groundwater, we want the Air Force to be participating and helping and mitigating that for as long as it is present. So that's something we will stay vigilant on. And then just to close off really quick, I just want to give you an update of the next steps. So this ESA, we have negotiated down. We have both agreed on all of the terms. This will be executed administratively by city staff with the Air Force countersigning. As we monitor and watch for new EPA regulations on PFAS, PFOA, and other perfluorinated compounds, we will be going back to the Air Force once those policies and regulations are put in place in an attempt to change the language of these ESAs so that they are always in effect as long as there is any level of PFAS in Fountain's groundwater. And lastly, really, I just want to emphasize that regardless of any conditions in these ESAs, of any outside conditions, of any EPA action, of any funding sources, Fountain is committed and will remain treating our groundwater to levels of non-detect, regardless of what that takes from utilities. That is our commitment that we have made to the citizens, that council has pushed forward as a resolution. So we will continue to adhere to that level, regardless of any outside factors. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Just to reiterate, at no point, even though the water was over the 70 parts per trillion, were our citizens exposed to that because the water is treated before it gets to them.
That is correct. That 70 parts per trillion is only for the water coming directly out of the well before it arrives at the treatment facility. That is what the Air Force ESA trigger is based on.
Okay.
All of the water coming out the back end of the plant is non-detect for PFAS, and we ensure that.
And if someone has a private well, the city of Fountain does not test that, they would need to contact the county for anything like that.
That is correct, the county health department.
Okay. All right. Okay, any questions? Councilmember Duncan?
Just for clarification, so a lot of these filtration systems, that you can buy out of the store, just to reiterate, they do not remove PFAS, right?
There are under-sink reverse osmosis units that will treat it, and I believe there are also some carbon-based filter units that will treat it. There are in-house technologies that can remove PFAS.
And you can buy them retail?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Follow-up on her question. Those are reliant on the person who installs them, changing the filter out at
That is
the
correct,
accepted
yes.
times and
They have
making
a
sure-
set
yeah.
lifetime on that treatment media.
Right.
And just like our big plant, it requires you, once that is expended, you have to replace it with new fresh media.
Right, okay. That was part of the concern when this came up, was that they didn't know how long it would take for the breakthrough to occur at your individual household. And so, yeah, okay. Right, Councilmember Estes.
And I just want to go over it again. When this was found, our wells were immediately turned off.
When the health advisory level came out, it was
Right.
found across the country at
Right,
various
And we
levels.
turned them off.
Once
And
they
then-
put out a
And then
level,
any
yes.
well water we used then came through the GAC filters. So we have been treating that water since 2018.
Correct, yes.
Not 2021, when the
Yes.
new facility came on, or last year, since 2018.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from anybody here? Oh, Councilmember Applegate.
Yeah, the 70 parts, that's right at the wellhead,
Yes, sir.
and then it goes through our treatment plant,
Correct.
and it comes out undetectable.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, that's what the citizens want to know is we can't even find it in there after the treatment.
That is correct.
And you have a time frame on how long our treatment system will have to go until it has to be upgraded or whatever?
We constantly monitor and do sampling at various points through the treatment, so we can see if the treatment material we use is starting to degrade, and we can plan to change it out and put fresh material in before any PFAS makes it through the back end of that treatment plant. So we are constantly monitoring and tracking that.
Great. And another little thing, when it first came out and it dropped to 70 within a day or so, we were the first one in the country to
Yes, sir.
identify that.
Yep,
and
we were
try
at the
to
very
stop
forefront
it.
of this.
So we were ahead of the curve.
Yep.
And it was a little bit more painful with getting the Air Force to come to the table. Slightly more painful.
We like to give them the credit we can. They've been very
do.
good partners to us.
Well, I think the glitch got to be understanding the process of going through the channels you needed to go through, and that they couldn't do anything here locally. It wasn't that they didn't want to do anything locally at the base. It was it had to go through the proper channels, through the Pentagon and all that kind of stuff. And we can really thank Representative Landgraf, Representative Lamborn, Senator Gardner, and I believe Senator Bennett at the time, for helping get all that going for us and getting the proper channels and doors opening for us in Washington, D.C. I know Troy went on that trip. Scott, did you go? I know former Mayor Ortega did. John Trilch went, yeah. And it was a really good meeting.
And I do just want to stress that we have a very strong, good partnership with the local Air Force representatives at Peterson that oversee this program. They may not be in a position to change some of these broader DoD policies that we have issues with, but they do everything in their power to support us, and they are phenomenal to work with. I do just want to commend the staff at Peterson that partners with us on this.
I still feel sorry for the poor commander who I think he had been on base less than 48 hours when this all hit and he had to have a press conference, so I felt for him. That was tough. Okay, any further questions from anybody in council? Any staff comments or? All right, thank you very much. Thank you for explaining it in lay terms as usual. Appreciate that. All right. That takes us on to item 4.2, board commissions and committees. There are no appointments tonight. Before we go on to item 5, I would ask that you join us in a moment of silence for Officer Sandoval, who lost her life last week up in Colorado Springs, the parole officer. And I'd like to thank our PD and our fire department for being out there when she went home from Colorado Springs to Pueblo, for her honor out there. And also for the nation of Israel and all the loss of life over there in the last few days. So if we could just have a moment of silence for that, please. Okay, thank you. And that takes us on to item 5, correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. Mr. Trainer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have one quick item, and I've really been trying not to bother him, but I've got secret moles in his household. Todd's doing well. He's recovering from his surgery well, and, hopefully we'll be back sooner than he thinks. He wants to be back a heck of a lot sooner, but we'll see how his healing goes. Wanted to pass that on to you.
Knowing him, he's probably watching tonight. Troy?
Nothing to add tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Chief Graham?
No, ma'am, nothing this evening.
Chief Christiani?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update that I haven't given in a while, but I have some Beacon statistics that I'd like to share. For those that are unfamiliar with Beacon, it's our behavioral health connection unit. It's our health clinician with a police officer, and they're out there treating mental health calls for service, and the goal is to keep people out of jail and get them the help they need. So for the month of September, we have 48 total contacts, and these are just Fountain numbers, just our 2 Beacon units in Fountain. We had 48 total contacts. 11 of those contacts we were able to, there were criminal matters in play, but we were able to avoid arrest on 11 of those and get them treatment. We had 16 individuals that received treatment or counseling that were non-criminal matters, and then we just had 1 person that we had to bring to jail. But overall, 48 contacts in a 1-month period of time now that we have both clinicians on board is pretty good numbers. I mean, good in the fact that we're treating people, not good that we have 48 people out there that need treatment, but that's probably going to be ongoing forever. So as this unit gets more on the ground, these are good numbers for us. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the back row, raise your hand. Okay.
Mayor, Council, I just want to take the opportunity to commend Taylor Murphy. His efforts on this, on the PFAS, ESA, and everything he does every day is a tremendous asset to our community and our water system. He turned that whole thing around. Of course, he had a little bit of help, but he turned the whole thing around. He spearheaded and turned it around in about a week's time to ensure that we would get the maximum amount of funding so that we wouldn't miss a month, so to speak. And so as in everything he does, he has a very high standard of excellence, and we're very fortunate to have this young man with us. And so I just want to take the opportunity to commend him and thank him.
IT, anything tonight?
Nothing tonight, ma'am.
Okay, City Clerk? Okay, all right. Councilmember Duncan.
Just want to, this month is commemorating a lot of things, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we had a panel a couple of months ago for the community, and it was well attended with great discussion. Domestic violence is a ripple effect on families, friends, everyone that's involved. So if you know someone that is suffering or need help with domestic violence, you can call the hotline at 800-799-7233 or visit violencefreecolorado.org. So also want to, it's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we know not only does women get breast cancer, so do men. So we need to make sure that we get our mammograms, and men, you can do self-examinations also to make sure if you feel any lumps that you need to get those tested. It's really important that we take care of our health because a lot of us in this room are taking care of others, but in order to do that, we need to take care of ourselves. Ballots will be mailed out on October the 16th. They have 10 days for delivery. If you have not received your ballot by October the 26th, you can contact 719-575-8683. That's 719-575-VOTE. You can register to vote on www.govotecolorado.gov. And please don't wait until the last minute to vote. So that's my pitch about voting. They also have, if you go, they have sample ballots that have all the information statewide of who's running for office. They also have the blue book that you should have gotten in the mail. So you can go through and read about the initiatives that you're voting on. Very important. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Applegate?
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Estes?
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember Corey?
'Tis the season, I guess. Friday, we're going to have our Nightmare on Main Street dance, so 5 to 9 in front of City Hall. So we got all those different Halloween events coming up in the next couple weeks, so.
And that event is put on by Fountain Up.
Yeah, Fountain Up.
Yep. Councilmember Rick?
Reminder, the American Legion Post 38, together with VFW 6461 and the City of Fountain, present a Veterans Day ceremony 11 November at 11 minutes after 11 to honor all those who have served. There will be a barbecue following the ceremony, and it is open to the public. So I highly encourage people to attend. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
And it's at the
American Legion,
American Legion. Okay.
11 minutes after 11 in the morning.
All right, thank you very much. The City of Fountain hosted the Colorado Municipal League for their quarterly meeting, and that's always really interesting to see what is going on there. And I went to a luncheon by a great organization called Fostering Hope. Fostering Hope works with foster families. They come alongside them and provide them things they need. Anything from material needs to a day out to maybe do their grocery shopping for them and drop it at their house to maybe giving them a respite break while the foster parents can go on a date night for a couple hours. So if that's something that interests you, walking alongside Fostering Hope, I understand they do need volunteers within the City of Fountain for some of our foster families that are down here doing a great job. You can go to, just go to their website and investigate what all that is about. But they have almost as amazing statistics as Beacon does in terms of the people coming alongside these families and working with these kids. It's pretty amazing. I hope they have those statistics from the luncheon on their website. And they're just doing amazing things. That takes us on to item 6, public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Council may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up. Out of respect for the council and others in attendance, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And I have 2 cards tonight. The first card I received was from Aaron Himes on VFW and upcoming events. And please come on down and state your name for the record.
My name is Aaron Himes. I'm the commander for VFW 6461. I want to take a second to thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, for allowing me to speak. Looking at what we've accomplished over the last 30 days, we were able to help 11 veterans get enrolled in PACT Act, which is the VA healthcare for exposures overseas. We were able to help an additional 4 service members who are in need of basic necessities such as food and fuel. And then we were able to house an additional 8 service members or veterans over the last 30 days in short-term housing, ranging from 2 days to 5 days in our local hotels. And then something late breaking as of today, we had a veteran pass away, had 2 retired military working dogs. We were able to rehome those dogs in a matter of about an hour and a half with a current handler up on Fort Carson, so they won't go to the Humane Society and be put down based on their previous training. Looking at upcoming events that we have on October 17th, we have our auxiliary is doing a coat drive. So they're collecting coats from now through the 16th, and then starting on the 17th, those coats will be delivered across District 8 schools. On October 25th, we, in addition to American Legion 38, will be participating in a coat drive on Fort Carson being sponsored by Warriors Warehouse, passing out about 1,800 coats to active duty service members across Fort Carson, Peterson, and Schriever, just making sure that families have access to everything they need as they come in. And on the 28th, we have a kids Halloween party from 2 to 4. And then we have the adult Halloween party after that from 8 until close. And on the 29th, we'll be doing our trunk or treat at Post 6461 from 6 p.m. until close. And then the last 2 things we have, we are collecting donations for our Thanksgiving baskets. We're doing 75 baskets this year, 25 to Fort Carson, 25 to Peterson Schriever, and then 25 to the local community. So we do have people out there actively looking for members of the community that would benefit from getting a full Thanksgiving meal. And then we'll have our Angel Tree signups starting on November 1st, which is just if you have a child from 0 to 12 years old that, you know, really needs, you need to find a way to get a gift for them at Christmas, come sign up down at the post. Last year we gave out a little over 100 gifts. We aim to do the same this year, but if we don't have people come sign up, then we don't know that there's a need out there. Penny, your question is all I have for you.
Any questions? You guys are super busy. Thank you so much.
That time of year.
Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, the second card I have is from Al Linder on current events. Mr. Linder, if you could come down.
I passed, Mayor, you already brought it up.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, that takes us on to item 7, the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of council. We have items A and B. I do want to make one comment. I did send a correction for the minutes to Sylvia. Just one second, let me find it for everybody. It is on, right above public to be heard when we were giving our reports. It says voters voted against the repeal of the Gallagher Amendment, and that should read voters passed the repeal of the Gallagher Amendment. So I would put that forward, whoever makes the motion to do the minutes as amended. Okay, what would council like to do with the consent items? Councilmember Rick.
Move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, and Councilmember Corey?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the consent agenda as amended. Please vote.
Six yes, motion carried.
Okay, that takes us on to item 8, old business. Item A, discussion on time for public comment for items on the agenda. And Troy, I have your name next to that.
Yeah, Mayor, just before you all start with this discussion item, I wanted to kind of give you a quick preface about kind of the current state of the rules for public comment. So currently, the rule is for public to be heard that public members get 3 minutes. And that's kind of a strictly enforced rule. And every other time that the public gets up, it's a presumptive 3 minutes, but the mayor has a lot of control over kind of to control the topic of conversation and to ensure the meeting goes smoothly with agenda items. And so before you all talked about where you maybe should go or what the rule should be, I wanted to just clarify that's currently kind of the status quo of how it's handled. So with that, you're obviously free to change the rules or the procedure, however you all want to do it, but that's kind of currently, the way that we have and the council has set the rules in terms of public comment.
Okay, and so Councilmember Rick, you had requested this to be on, and I just want to clarify, it does say on here for items on the agenda. Right.
Correct, Madam Mayor. I am not proposing any changes to the time limit for public to be heard. But for items on the agenda, people come to this meeting and they're hearing a lot of items for the first time. They're getting a lot of interaction between the council and the staff and the applicants, and they're forming questions, and they don't always, I feel, have time to narrow it down to a 3-minute period for items on the agenda. I have received feedback from both the public and the staff recommending that we consider making it 5 minutes for items on the agenda rather than 3 minutes. I just want to bring it up as a discussion item to see where the council feels we're at.
Okay, comments? Councilmember Estes.
I have a question for Troy. If we set it for these items to 5 minutes and say we have a packed house of 200 people here, can we set it back to 2 minutes, 3 minutes if we had that many? Or do we have to leave it at 5 minutes?
Well, it's up to you as a council what you'd like to do. So, you could create a sort of a bright line rule if you want, but if you create a rule, then you should probably stick to it, right? Or you create a system that has a little bit of discretion built in for exactly that purpose. But then you're sort of at the mercy of the person with the discretion, right? And so it's really what the council wants to do. If you want to implement rules, like that's great, but you got to follow the rules. And so I think that was the original intent of the current status was to have some discretion for agenda items that maybe citizens might need a little bit more time to explain something, or on the flip side, maybe there's an agenda item that there's a lot of comments that might be pretty short, right? And so that kind of created some opportunity for the meeting to run smoother. But again, that's up to the council, however you want to structure it.
Okay, and I know that I'm with Councilman Rick. I really rely on those public comments, and I know sometimes we do struggle to get the appropriate thing out. And to do my job up here, I need to hear from the citizens. So I'm open to this discussion.
But you don't have a comment on, so you would like to see it potentially extended to 5 minutes for items on the agenda?
I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to it, so.
Okay. So make sure I was getting it right. Councilmember Duncan?
The question I have is, if the person is speaking for 5 minutes, and let's say someone else comes up and makes, is it per person or is it 5 minutes at a time? So if I have a question, can I come up more than once for 5 minutes?
I mean, you're looking at me, but I think, what do you all want it to be, right? I mean, that's the question.
I think
So I'll
Sylvia-
throw it right back to you. What is it that you would like it to be?
Sylvia?
Well, currently, the code of conduct does state that if a person gets up to speak on an item that is on the agenda, that they are to get up one time, unless council requests additional information or additional speaking from that individual. So that's the way it stands now. But like Troy said, that's where we're at, and what do you want to do with that? You can change it.
Is that the code of conduct, we'd have to change the code of conduct. And so what does that require?
So if there is a direction from council tonight, the code of conduct will be amended with your direction, and it'll come back at the next council meeting via resolution for formal approval.
Okay. So I'm for, extending it for the 5 minutes. We get elected to hear what the people want to say. So I want to hear what they want. I want to hear what the people have to say about decisions being made that affects them. So if it's 5 minutes, if it's 3 minutes, but as long as they get to verbalize what they want to say, right?
I was waiting for the cue. Okay, Councilmember Corey, Councilmember Applegate.
I'm fine with 5 minutes on seeing an agenda item. I mean, as long as somebody's not coming up to the mic like 20 times, I'm perfectly all right with it. So, 5 minute time limit, I think is plenty of time.
So as Sylvia stated, right now it says
Right.
you get to come up once and do your 5 minutes.
Right.
Unless council would say, Corey, could you come back and
Right,
have a second? another
clarify. I'm fine
clarify.
with clarity on that. So
Okay.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Alrighty.
I think the 5 minute works okay for those items, and we should have, like you said, the discretion. If the room's full and they're all going to come up with the same story, we should have the discretion to go back to 3.
I've seen that done at the state where like they have
Right.
500 people sign up for something and it gets a little frustrating because the first 100 people get 3 minutes and then the next 100 people get 2 minutes. And by the time they're down to the last 50 or 60, they're like, you have 30 seconds, So you can hardly get your name
And
spit
that should
out.
be the discretion
Right.
of the person
But I
running the
have
meeting.
seen it done by previous mayors where they did have a ton of people here on a certain item, and the people were asked before they started taking the comments on the agenda item to kind of get together, and if they all had a bunch of yeses, maybe only one spokesperson would come up for the 5 minutes and say all the points for everybody, so that it wasn't just real repetitive. I have seen that.
But
that
if we only
done.
have 1 or 2, maybe 3 people, and that's all cards we have, and that's all for the evening.
Okay, well, we don't get
then I
cards
think
for
5
agenda
minutes
items.
is
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
acceptable.
Right. Only do the cards on the public to be heard. So, okay. So it sounds like everybody's open to changing that to 5 minutes? Is that what I'm hearing here? the
And I just would like to comment, I like the 5 minutes, but I do like somehow putting it in about the discretion that we could shorten it back up if
Right.
need be.
So that was my
I do
question.
have a question, though, because I've seen this happen and in other, not here, but I've seen it happen in other council meetings, where people will have a certain issue that they're extremely passionate about, and they will want to keep passing their time to a bunch of people, so 1 minute, one person can potentially get up and speak for 15 or 20 minutes, and there, people just say, I cede my time to, I cede my time to. So, Sylvia, how it?
If that's the direction that council wants to go, like I said, currently it does state that each person can get up once on the
Okay.
topic. So if you want to maintain that, then we'll just keep that
Okay.
language in there.
So then really the only change would be moving the presumptive time from 3 minutes to 5 minutes and keeping the discretion in
On agenda items.
on agenda items.
Okay, and that's not difficult to do, Sylvia, right? You can do the 3 minute for one and then set it for 5 for the other?
Yes, it can be changed easily.
Okay, but does that start tonight?
No, it won't start until the resolution is passed at the next
I
meeting.
just wanted to clarify it for the public. So, okay, it starts after the resolution is passed. And the time frame, because sometimes we have to, it's not immediate.
Resolutions are immediate, so
Okay.
once it comes to the next meeting, it will be immediate.
Okay,
Okay?
all right, perfect. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Absolute-
did you
yes.
want to get feedback from the public or any input on that?
Oh, okay, well, since it was a discussion item, okay, we can do that. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to say anything on that? If so, please come down and state your name, and come on down.
Al Lender, REA Road. Gordon, I asked you many months ago, and I asked you, Deetra Duncan, I asked you months ago to help me with this rule, but what you just did, you completely changed it. It was supposed to be public to be heard. Why is it that I am a veteran of the country with several people in the room who are veterans? And why are we veterans? Because we signed up so we would have our voice could be heard, the Constitution of the United States. 3 minutes for public to be heard is not enough time. I like to come into this meeting in the beginning and say something up front and leave. I don't like to sit here all night. Mr. Applegate, you were at my house and I tried to explain that to you. This is a complete reversal, Scott. We had talked about this with public to be heard. It's always been unlimited amount of time when you had a agenda item. As far as the 24 years that I've been here with this city, I've always come up here and always been able to speak as long as I wanted to. But all of a sudden, I, Mayor, have a conflict, and every time I've come up here, you've shut me down. I've never been able to talk a full 3 minutes. And I'm shocked that the city attorney hasn't been bringing it up about how our rights are affected. And that's what I'm going to say. Gordon, I spoke to you 6 months ago about this, and you were going to bring it up, but you completely reversed it to something else.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that has anything to say about this item? Okay. Seeing none, I believe staff, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dean.
I have a
Councilwoman
question.
Duncan.
So the public comment is in stone? That we can't, that,
Currently, yes. So the public to be heard that's a rule to make it fair and equitable across the board for everybody on the public to be heard section of the agenda. With that said, you're the legislative body, so you can change what's in stone. But yes, that is the current rule.
The council created that rule.
Right.
Councilman, or, I'm sorry.
that was during the retreat? Is that?
No.
No.
Back in
Long time ago.
Long time ago.
Actually,
I don't know,
Sylvia, is
9?
that's not in the charter, is it, Sylvia?
No.
The 3 minutes isn't in the charter, yeah. So that's, I mean, it's a law, right?
Okay,
that
can we
you've
state for
created.
the record, please, what year that was
I would have to look it up.
approximately? Has it been,
Oh, it's been 2009, 2010. It's been a long time.
It's been a long
I remember the
time.
council at the time having the discussion.
before any of us were on council here? They initiated the 3 minutes
Right.
to be heard.
But the council has the authority to change those times.
Is that an ordinance?
Yes.
Yes, the time
it
for the
is in the
public to be heard.
ordinance.
So that would have to be changed by ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Which
But that's
means
not
what?
what the discussion item is tonight. Right, the discussion item tonight is just for the public to be heard.
Right.
It would take 2 readings of an ordinance.
Thank you for the agenda item.
But I did want to speak real quickly to Mr. Lender's comments, just so that the council is aware. The city does have an alternative to wanting to speak longer. We actually have an application for an audience before city council, which then creates an agenda item for anybody to go before city council and speak. And that one typically is, we request that they're no more than 15 minutes, but there is no rule in how long an agenda item can actually take. So there is an alternative. Just wanted to
Okay.
let you know.
All right. And Troy, if we are arbitrary with the time, there's issues with that too, right? If we allow one person to speak 3 minutes, one person 5, one person go over and speak 10.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason for the 3-minute rule for public to be heard. So that's applied evenly, and then sort of the discretion is because we have to have an efficient meeting. So, and I think the best practice would be in the beginning of an agenda item to set the stage for the expectation so that it's applied evenly. Exactly.
Right. But some of the training we've received says, if you let one person go over, you can potentially be held accountable because you're not applying the rule evenly.
Yeah, and I think, and not to get too deep on you, but I think, you call it, it's in the 13th Amendment, it's equal protection, right? Like, we all have the right to access government equally, is the general idea, right? And so creating that expectation for every citizen is important, that we're allowing equal and equitable access for everyone.
Okay. All right. So that will be brought back next meeting, Sylvia, or?
Yes, I'll bring it at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I have lost my agenda page, so give me just a second. Where did I put it? All right, that takes,
I just want, Sylvia brought up something, and I want you to, could you clarify, because I don't really know. You were saying, this is a meeting before the city council meeting that you were talking about, or during city council? Scott?
So the council created an opportunity because a long time ago, to allow for groups or individuals who may have some business they want to bring before the city council, that they want to have a discussion on. If it's an item that the council hasn't just dealt with as a business item or isn't already dealing with as a business item, then they are free to submit. There's an application to the clerk's office. They provide us their presentation information in advance so we can get it queued up. And then they have the ability to have an agenda item on the agenda to talk about whatever. We've had people who've had, various issues with the zoning question or whatever. They could have just various questions or business items that they want to bring up, and they have the ability to do that. It rarely happens, but they have the ability.
Okay, so it rarely happens, and we rarely have anybody it rarely happens. And then when public comments comes, we have certain community leaders, right? We call them community leaders that want to talk. And, I mean, to me, this is an issue of not only, from listening to Mr. Linder, it's a trust issue, right? Because if I had a conversation and it's a trust issue, and I just don't want to be perceived as a council that can't be trusted, right? So I don't think that we addressed his problem, and I think we need to address. And I don't know if I can put that on the next agenda item, but I think we need to address it because I don't think that that's what he was here for. Again, like he said, he talked to me, and I don't want to be perceived as somebody that you can't trust. So he talked to me about it, and we didn't address it, and we need to address it.
Okay. I'd like to finish the discussion. Let's finish one thing before we get into another one, okay? So we have the direction on the item that's on the new business that's on there for them to bring back a resolution. Right, Sylvia, resolution, changing the items on the agenda. Okay, so that we have.
Yes.
And then we have so we're kind of done with that item, right? And then we have another request down here from Councilmember Duncan for an agenda request. And would you be willing to say that until we get to item 10 where we have city council agenda requests? Okay, all right.
And just, Mayor, real quick, to clear up the record, it was the 14th Amendment, it was equal protection, the 13th freed the slaves. So, sorry if I got that wrong.
Well, none of us corrected you, so thank you. All righty.
Do you have a comment?
Okay, do we have a comment from someone in the audience, please? Come down and,
Is it too late to make a comment?
no, go ahead, come down and state your name for the record, please.
Madam Mayor, Aaron Imes with VIW 6461. Recommendation on the wording, we follow parliamentary procedures just like you do. One recommendation for the agenda items would be to say that it will be outlined at the beginning of each agenda item. It will be no less than 3 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, which allows you as the council to set a time for that So if it's something that can be answered quickly, you can address it quickly. If it's something that involves more in-depth discussion, it allows you that 5 minutes. Just something we do. It's outlined in Robert's rules, so it is covered as general parliamentary procedure.
All right, thank you very much for the suggestion. Okay, anybody else in the audience? Okay, seeing none, I think staff has, you're getting ready to.
Well, do we need like a motion for this?
No, it's just a discussion item. It's not a motion. It's just for discussion. So they'll bring it back next time, right? And then you'll have time to review it in your packet before it comes up. Okay. We have, going on to item 9, we have new business. Item 9A, consideration of items removed from the consent agenda. There were no items removed from the consent agenda. Then we have items 9B, C, and D. It's been requested that I go ahead and read the resolution in and then open the public hearing for items C and D, and we will handle those as one item. However, when Christie is finished with her presentation of the items individually. And it's a little confusing, so did I explain that right?
Correct. All three items, items 9B, C, and D are all related to the same parcel. So each item will be read into the record, public hearings open, but at the end, all public hearings will be closed and a motion would be made on all three, or on each item individually.
Okay. Resolution 23-046, a resolution setting forth findings of facts and conclusions based thereon regarding the eligibility for annexation to the City of Fountain of territory known as School District Number 8, Arena Access Annexation, located at 10535 Jimmy Camp Road, and herein more specifically described in Exhibit A. I'm opening a public hearing and first reading of Ordinance 1792, an ordinance annexing to the City of Fountain that area to be known as School District 8 Arena Access Annexation, located at 10535 Jimmy Camp Road, and hereinafter more specifically described in Exhibit A. I'm opening a public hearing and first reading of Ordinance 1793, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the City of Fountain, Colorado to Parks and Open Space, POS, district related to that area to be known as School District Number 8, Arena Access Annexation, generally located at 10535 Jimmy Camp Road, and hereinafter more specifically described in Exhibit A and Exhibit B. Ms. Martinez.
Thank you. Good evening, Christie.
Yes, sir.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I need to disclose that I was at the Planning Commission meetings when these items were discussed. I have spoken to the city attorney. He has told me I do not need to recuse myself because I did not participate in the discussions. However, if there is a member of council who feels I should recuse myself and you guys want to make a motion for me to recuse myself, I will.
Okay, what does council, would council, okay, I'm just making sure, okay? Okay, it looks like you have everybody comfortable with the fact that, okay?
All right. Thank you. Good evening. Christy Martinez with the City of Fountain Planning Department. As mentioned, these three items that were read into the record are all specific to the property located at 10535 Jimmy Camp Road, which is also known as the School District 8 Arena Access Annexation. The first item is the statutory requirements for findings of fact on all annexations. The property is located just north of the Conrad Early Learning Center and the Fountain Fort Carson School District Administration Building on the east side of Jimmy Camp Road. Staff has evaluated the annexation request in conformance with the state laws outlined in the Colorado Revised Statutes 31, 12, 104, and 105, and does find that the annexation request is eligible to be considered by City Council. The property does meet the minimum contiguity requirements. The state statutes outline that a minimum of 16.6% of the property boundary must be contiguous to existing city limits. The parcel in question has 100% contiguity, meaning it is considered an enclave as it is completely surrounded by the city limits of Fountain. All of the required public notices and legal publications were conformed to. All taxing entities that had issued ad valorem taxes in the previous year were notified, and there were 4 consecutive weeks of notification in a local newspaper of general circulation in the city, being the Gazette. Those publications were on August 30th of 2023, September 6th, September 13th, and September 20th. As I mentioned, the request is in statutory compliance to be considered tonight. Therefore, staff would recommend approval of Resolution 23046 tonight. The next item is the consideration of the annexation document itself. The property is approximately 1.3 acres in size, and as mentioned, located 10535. It is also considered an annexation, meeting all the statutory contiguity requirements as it's fully surrounded by existing city limits. This is a snippet of the annexation plat. The parcel that is highlighted in yellow is the 1.3 acre parcel to be considered for annexation. The parcel to the north is also owned by the school district and was previously annexed under a different development. The school district does own that parcel in addition to the parcels to the south. Within the city's comprehensive development plan, the property is within the urban's growth boundary, which does ensure that the logical extension of city services and city boundaries can be provided, that the annexation does encourage a strategic growth option as it's already located within the city limits and will not be extending the city's boundaries more than 3 miles in any given year. And it is also to just be evaluated based upon the impact of the local tax base and the value to the residents. Since it is owned by the school district, they are tax exempt from property taxes, so the city doesn't benefit in any sort from a mill levy tax by it being annexed, but it does provide contiguity to the city limits. The 2007 city annexation plans, policies 1 and 4, also encourage voluntary annexation, meaning that the property owners approach the city for annexation, in which case the school district did approach the city to annex the parcel. And that policy 4 stipulates that the benefits of the city ensure the logical extension of the city boundaries. Should the annexation be approved tonight, this would eliminate one small enclave within the city boundaries. Staff finds that the area is, for annexation, is located within the urban services and urban growth areas. It's also located within the city boundaries, and again, not extending the 3-mile plan that was adopted for 2023. Is consistent with the state statutes, and all public notice requirements have been met. This item was presented to the Planning Commission at their July 6th meeting, at which time the Planning Commission did make a favorable recommendation by a vote of 4-0. And at tonight's meeting, staff would not oppose approval of Ordinance 1792 on first reading, which would annex the property known as School District 8 Arena access to the existing city limits. The next item is consideration of the initial zoning request. For any parcel that is to be considered for annexation into the city and formally annexed into the city must also be zoned a zone district within the city limits of Fountain. The school district is seeking an initial zoning classification of parks and open space, which is the POS zone district, which is consistent with all of the other school district properties in the surrounding area. Same acreage, same location. The comprehensive development plan does recommend single-family residential as the future land use in this area. The request to the parks and open space would be a deviation from that request. However, staff is supportive of that as schools are allowed in any zone district within the city. Staff finds that the initial zoning request is consistent with review criteria 1 and 2 in section 172450 of the Fountain Municipal Code. Those 2 criteria is that it is consistent with the comprehensive development plan and compatible with the surrounding uses and zoning. This item was also presented at the July Planning Commission meeting, at which time they also made a favorable recommendation of a vote of 4-0. And tonight, staff would not oppose approval of Ordinance 1793 on first reading, amending the official zoning map of the City of Fountain to the Parks and Open Space Zone District for this parcel. Are there any questions for staff?
Councilmember Rick?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, well, your mic was on, so. Okay, any questions from any council members? Okay,
There is representation from School District 8 in addition to their engineer on that they have retained to assist them through this process if there's any questions for them.
Okay, would you like to come down and say anything tonight? Good evening, it's been a long time.
Good evening, Mayor, Sharon, members of the City Council. Tim McConnell with Drexel Burrell, the civil engineer and surveyor for the project. We prepared the annexation, plat, zoning exhibits, everything before you today. We're basically here just to answer any questions if you do have any. I will note we also submitted a final plat for this entire acreage, the 1.3 acres that Christy mentioned, and the additional acreage that the school district owned that's being reviewed administratively to combine all that and make it into one lot after the annexation and zoning are complete. So that's under review, but, and with that plat, we will be dedicating some additional right-of-way along Jimmy Camp Road and some other improvements going on along the corridor there. But anyway, really just here to answer questions. I think I'll let Adrian May, the Director of Facilities and Construction for District 8, speak, and then we'll answer any questions that you have or any that the public may have.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Adrian May, Director of Facilities and Construction for the school district. Madam Mayor, council members, thank you guys very much for giving us the opportunity to bring these items to the city council. We're just very excited about the opportunities as the city of Fountain grows, as we can accommodate our citizens out here. And as Tim said, he's been very helpful throughout this process. So we are ready to answer any questions or any comments that you may have.
Okay, I do have one mic on here, so hang on. Councilmember Rick?
Yes, if I could, the property in question, both the individual parcel and the other parcel around it, what are you planning on doing with the property?
So right now, it's undetermined. We have modified our development plans a little bit with the road, the Trojan Point Road, access road, which previously, when that was planned and we didn't own that piece of property, we kind of had to go around it. So this has enabled us to kind of make a much closer to a straight shot over to Jimmy Camp Road. So apart from that, there are no current plans to develop that further.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Of course.
Great. Any further questions from anybody on council? Staff? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we're going to go ahead and don't go too far. Open it up to public and see if anyone from the public has any questions or comments about this item. If so, please come down and state to the microphone and state your name. And since the new resolution is not done, we are under, Sylvia? We're under the 3 minutes, so if you could go ahead and start the timer.
I don't know if I'll get it done then. My name is Stacy Salvatore. I'm a resident in Highgate Farms. And I just really have a comment to say is as part of their, as Fountain for Carson, Adrian May, that
I need you, Stacy, to turn around to the mic.
Sorry.
Okay.
Adrian May, that they were supposed to be working with Highgate Farms when they were leveling that off, and they didn't. So very disappointment to Fountain for Carson School District. And it's sad. Taking all the trees down and literally stopped talking to us in Highgate Farms. And that Trojan Road, yeah, they put that in before even coming in and asking for permission for it. Just letting you know. Now there's 2 open extra curb cuts. Not even sure if those are going to be closed off. That's how I feel. Actually, a lot of us in Highgate Farms feel about that. And how School District 8 pretty much closed the doors in communicating with us in Highgate Farms. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to come down? Please come on down and state your name for the record.
Alonzo Carswell. I also live in Highgate. So Councilman Rick kind of mentioned it. It went so fast on the clip up there. So we see the annexed area in the green thing, but on the outside.
We can back up. Is this the photo you're referring to?
One before it. Okay, that one right there okay, we see the annex, but in the outline, it mentioned townhomes annex. That had me a little confused when the flyer came out.
Okay, hang on.
That they're building
Okay, now
townhomes or
this won't
something.
count, hang on, this won't count towards your time.
No, he can finish his thought. I just.
Oh, okay, all right, she's got an answer for you when you're finished on that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was totally confused by that when I got the paper, trying to
Okay.
figure it out, what they're doing. So Councilman Gordon Rick, he kind of mentioned it, and the gentleman here mentioned that nothing else was being done at the moment. So I'm still kind of, what's really going on?
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, that's fine. I think we probably have an answer for you. Go ahead, Christy.
It will be discussed in more detail in as soon as these items are discussed. But that parcel to the north, as I mentioned, was previously annexed into the city in the early 2000s. And at that time, before the school district had owned the property, that developer was seeking development of a townhome community. So it was platted as the Sonador Ranch Townhome Development, which is the legal description of the parcel. So it's Lot 1 of Sonador Ranch. The school district then acquired that parcel after the fact, but that legal description does not change. So as the school district representatives stated that they don't have any plans at this time for future development, but the legal description of the parcel, being the lot and the development name, remains the same.
Does that answer your question? Okay. Please come down and state your name for the record.
I'm Donna Wall, also a Highgate resident. We want to know, are they just going to leave it a dirt lot? Is it going to be a parking lot? Is it going to be additional parking for the oversized arena that they built? What are they going to do with it?
Okay, Ms. Martinez. I don't think we're at that point for today. We're only at annexing the property into the city of Fountain, not the overall development plan for it. Is that correct?
Correct. So the items being considered tonight are the annexation and the initial zoning. And again, I would just defer back to the school district's representation where they've indicated that they don't have any plans at this time for development.
Okay. I know that's frustrating when you can't have the whole thing at once, but this is just the way we have to do it, is in pieces. So, is there anybody else from the audience that has any public comments? Okay, is there anybody online with any public comments?
No one online, ma'am.
Okay. All right, is there any further questions for anybody from council? Go ahead.
So, two questions. First for Ms. Martinez.
I apologize.
That's okay. If the school decides to do something else with this property, such as put in a parking lot, put in townhomes, whatever, are they going to have to come back before city council to get approval for that?
They would not. So school districts fall under the statutory requirements. If they were to do anything on property that they own, their only legal requirements outlined in the statutes is to notify the municipality. There are some procedural steps that the city council or planning commission may take to request a hearing before the school board, but there wouldn't be any formal approval process as the city doesn't have the ability to regulate that. And then with that, I will turn it over to City Manager Trainer.
I want to make sure we get some clarification on that townhome piece, because that's been, I'm also in Highgate, and that's been a real question that I know a lot of us have had for a long time. And so I just want to make sure that Christie clarifies that. With this next item, the city will potentially be rezoning this to POS, which would not allow for the townhomes to be built. Is that correct?
Correct, without getting too much in detail, without opening that
So
hearing.
I just wanted to clarify that. Townhomes can't just spring up there.
That was a previous property owner
Right.
that had purchased that property and then,
Under the PUD zoning.
Right,
But
and
they're
then-
changing that to open space.
and then decided not to pursue that project and to sell the property. Okay,
And then one more question, Madam Mayor.
okay. I know, I can't see which order people are popping in. Your light is still on?
Yeah, I had two questions.
Okay, let me finish the second question and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Second is for the school board. Everybody's seen that you've kind of taken away the trees, taken away the vegetation, everything. There's a bunch of dirt that blows around on a regular basis. Do you have any plans to plant anything in there to prevent the dirt from blowing around into Highgate Farms?
Yes, sir. Adrian May again, District 8. And we absolutely do plan to put vegetation out there. It is currently an active construction site because of all the land we're doing. And I also would like to comment that the open curb items that I think another citizen had mentioned, all of that's going to be cleaned up. And one of the great things that comes with the school district getting this property, we're able to now have a continuous sidewalk that goes all the way down Jimmy Camp, and we have made many improvements along there with the handicap accessibility along that, and we will continue to do so. So that will all be brought up to current standards.
Okay, I would just ask that you try and get some vegetation down before next summer, so that people aren't having a whole bunch of dust blowing into their yards, into their houses, on their furniture, their carpet, whatever.
Understand. Happy to take that back and do what we can.
I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Estes?
Just a point of clarification, it doesn't matter if we annex this piece into the city or not, we don't get to determine what they're doing because they fall under the school board rules, correct, Christie?
Correct.
Okay. Any further questions?
I know I have been up, but you brought something else up I would like to ask.
Sylvia?
Yes, ma'am, it's a public hearing. We'll go ahead and start.
Okay. Ma'am, could you please come down for clarification of your question?
So,
Wait till you get to the mic, please.
okay, so again, Donna Wall, Highgate Farms. He said all the ADA accesses have been met with the sidewalks on Jimmy Camp. We have now been in our neighborhood for 17 years, and we have an access from our neighborhood to the school property. But they will not put in an ADA access there. It goes to the Conrad building, it goes to the high school, kids cross through there to go to the middle school. We go there for walks, but they put this hardcore curb there, and you can't, we have people that need ADA accesses. And why should we have to go another half a mile to walk to school when we have this access right through our neighborhood?
Are you kind of talking about the drainage pond
The
area
pond
where
area,
people have kind of
yes,
made a trail
yes,
along there?
yes.
And they've blocked that off?
Well, they haven't blocked it, but they put this big curb there that you can't go over. If you have, you know, it makes it difficult, let's put it that way.
Okay. Ms. Martinez, do you want to?
I'd probably defer that to the school district representatives, but generally speaking, a social trail would not constitute ADA accessibility and wouldn't necessarily be required to upgrade it, especially because it is a social trail. And if there is a designated ADA accessibility route already designated to the public sidewalks, that would be the legally defined route. In addition, it's my understanding that general area is the location of a detention pond, which would make it likely prohibitive to add additional sidewalk without interfering with the functionality of the detention pond, but I would defer to the school district representations for further clarification.
Thank you for more opportunity to clarify this. We absolutely received that request, and we have considered that, but a lot of what Ms. Martinez has said, we kind of found those same things. We are not opposed to relooking at all of the items that come up. As right now, as we said, we are not even completely confident as to what's going to happen with that land and that area that we develop in that area. So there's certainly more, and I believe the school board, just to clarify earlier, I think someone mentioned the school board. I am not the school board. I'm Director of Facilities and Construction. So I'm here representing the Facilities and Construction Group. But we absolutely will take, we're going to take all these comments back. We're going to review that with the district leadership and the school board if the superintendent wants to take it there. And we have those meetings monthly as well with the school board, and we certainly are open to hear any and all concerns.
Okay. I would really, really highly encourage, Deidre, I saw you like just a second. I would highly, highly encourage you to go to the school board meetings.
We've had our own personal meetings with.
Well, if you attend the school board meetings, you get your concerns on record. And that's really, really important. And I know it's frustrating, and I hear it. You know, people tell it to us too, because we don't necessarily vote the way they want them to too. But once we annex this, and as it's been stated a couple times, we have no control over what the school district builds and does on their property. So they're under a separate guideline. So I really, really encourage you to do that. And if you're really super frustrated, in 2 years, run for school board. And I'm sure there'll be some open seats there. So Councilmember, I'm not sure who, Duncan?
Okay, I just would like, you stated that you will be putting in some vegetation. I just would recommend, my suggestion is that you put in eco-friendly vegetation, and that saves on water.
Absolutely. Yep. Understood. Thank you.
Councilmember Rick?
Just from me to you, if you would pass on to the school board, that I would ask that the school board favorably consider making that trail ADA accessible. I walk that area. I don't live in Highgate Farms, but I walk through there. And now that I've had surgery on my knee, I could use a little easier access. From me personally, I would ask you to take a look at that.
Understand, and I'm happy to take that back, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Understand, though, ADA accessibility just at the curb cut. Christie, correct me if I'm wrong. Christie, correct me if I'm wrong. ADA access at the curb cut does not mean that they have to make the entire trail ADA accessible, because a dirt trail is not going to pass.
Correct.
What we call, so even though they give you, and that's being built, that kind of informal trail is right next to your drainage ditch. And so you really, really have. Okay, well, you just have to consider how much you want that going through, but. I get it. I'm just saying, though, I want to make it clear that just doing the curb cut, if they choose to do it, is not going to make that trail be all ADA compliant. So, okay, Councilmember Corey.
One more question for you, sir. So she had mentioned about the dirt blowing around because you said it was an active construction site. The contractor's running a water truck over that dirt, right? Correct? Or are they going to be making that adjustment soon?
So I will take that back and make
Okay.
sure that we get that seen to just as soon as we can.
Good, because that's the easiest
Yep.
solution to that. Is if you don't have a
Of
lot
course.
of grass and a lot of vegetation, just run a water truck over it every once in a while.
That does
Not-
make a lot of sense.
Cool. Thank
Yes,
you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, any further questions from council? I'm sorry? Oh.
I had a comment to make. Councilmember Rick, actually, I think. I was going to say, I had a comment to make. I think Councilmember Rick hit it. It's really important in all of our developments. It's something that we did when we planned Highgate. We create connectivity between developments, between neighboring properties, particularly trail connectivity. And you can clearly see when Highgate was developed, that trail's not one that was just created by people walking there. It was actually a developed trail to a developed access point over to the school property, which every kid in that neighborhood uses, which keeps them off the busy roads. And so it's really actually important. And you can make dirt trails ADA compatible. So I just think it's really important that we try to ensure, if we can, those safe route, to the schools for our kids over there. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Do we need to take a quick break, Troy, or what do we need? What are we doing here? I'm not quite sure. Okay. All righty. Seeing no other comments from anybody? And I understand you can make them, but they're just very difficult to maintain, and at a rate where people, we have dirt roads that are very difficult to keep them, so they're not washboards. So, okay. All right, seeing no further comments, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And like I said before, we're going to have to do 3 separate motions. So I'm going to go ahead with the first one for Resolution 23-046. What would council like to do with item B, Resolution 23-046? Councilmember Rick?
Move to approve Resolution 23-046, a resolution setting forth findings of fact and conclusions based thereon regarding the eligibility for annexation to the City of Fountain of territory known as School District Number 8, Arena Access Annexation, located at 10535 Jimmy Camp Road, and hereinafter more specifically described in Exhibit A.
Okay, we have a motion, and Councilmember Estes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Resolution 23-046. Is there any further deliberation from council? Okay, seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, we had a public hearing and first reading of ordinance 1792. That hearing is now closed. What would council like to do with that item? Councilmember Rick.
Recommend approval of ordinance 1792, an ordinance annexing to the city of Fountain that area to be known as School District Number 8, Arena Access Annexation, located at 10535 Jimmy Camp Road, hereinafter more specifically described in Exhibit A.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Estes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the public hearing for ordinance number 1792. Is there any further deliberation from council? Mr. Rick, your light's on? Okay. All right, if none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, we have public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 1793. What would council like to do with that? Councilmember Estes?
I move to approve ordinance 1793 on first reading.
Councilmember Corey?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on ordinance number 1793. Is there any further deliberation from council? Seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us on to item 9E, public hearing and I'm opening a public hearing and first reading of ordinance 1794, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Fountain, Colorado from planned unit development PUD to parks and open space POS, district for property located at 10515 through 10525 Jimmy Camp Road, and herein more specifically described in Exhibit A and Exhibit B. Ms. Martinez.
Thank you, Christy Martinez with the City of Fountain Planning Department again. The item before you is consideration of the parcel directly north of the parcel that was being considered previously for annexation. That parcel is located at 10515 through 10525. When there were structures on that property, there were actually 2 previous homes on that parcel, so there are the 2 addresses that are assigned to it. This parcel is approximately 5 acres in size and is currently zoned the Planned Unit Development District. The PUD zone district, was approved by City Council in conjunction with an overall development plan for a townhome community in 2007. That was prior to the school district acquiring the parcel in 2018. So as I had mentioned previously, that's where that legal description came from in the history of the land use approvals. The internal roadway known as Trojan Point, as you can kind of see on the screen, was to loop north and then tie into Jimmy Camp Road perpendicular, which was prior to the school district acquiring the parcel just being considered previously. With the acquisition of that parcel to the south, the school district does intend to straighten and align Trojan Point to come into more of a T intersection directly south rather than winding to the north. Again, this is the parcel being considered from the current zoning of the PUD to the Parks and Open Space Zone District. The comprehensive development plan, again, does also recommend single-family residential for this area. Staff is supportive of the deviation as schools are allowed within any zone district. Staff does find that the rezone request is consistent with the review criteria 1 and 2 outlined in section 172450 of the Fountain Municipal Code, which again is consistency with the surrounding with the comprehensive development plan. This item was also presented at the July Planning Commission meeting, at which time the Planning Commission did make a favorable recommendation of a vote 4-0. And tonight, staff would not oppose the approval of Ordinance 1794 on first reading to consider the rezone of the parcel from the Planned Unit Development Zone District to the Parks and Open Space District. Any questions for staff?
Okay. Mr. Rick, do you have anything to say about this item? No, ma'am. Okay, just making sure. All right. Okay, This is a public hearing. Do we have anybody from the presenter? Is this the school district again? Are they going to come down? Okay, do you have anything to say about this one?
Tim McConnell with Drexel Burrell again. We prepared the zoning exhibits and legal descriptions. We're really here just to answer any questions. I say converting it from the PUD to parks and open space, consistent with the rest of the school property. So that's really it. If you have any questions, I think I'd be glad to answer them, or Adrian. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any of our council on him? Okay. Okay, this is a public hearing, so if anyone from the public would like to please come down the microphone and state your name and start your time.
My name is Stacy Salvatore, again, a resident of Highgate Farms. She mentioned that the road they plan on realigning the Trojan Point Road.
Could we take the map back to that, please?
I want to say, I think that road is already aligned. Is that correct, School District 8?
I think one more back. Is this the map you're referring to?
Yep, so I'm just making corrections to what may be stated so that you understand the truth of, I think that road has been realigned, and District 8 can confirm that or not. And if you are showing a development plan that's going to be coming forward and you're going to be approving it, shouldn't that road, Trojan Point, with a note to be removed and to be realigned on the new plan that's going to be approved? Just stating.
All right, Tim McConnell, I'll try to answer briefly. I'm not sure where the city got this mapping information, if it's GIS. Our original Trojan Point alignment did follow this. We got that approved back in 2021. That's since changed since the school district acquired the other 1.3 acre parcel. So the alignment has changed, as Stacy's indicated, and we have approved plans for that. So at this point, I'm not sure where that mapping came from, but it is incorrect. This isn't anything that is going to be of official record on the city's mapping. It shows on this, but it's not on any development plan that we've submitted or any official public record, because like I said, there hasn't been no development plan approved for this, or submitted for this project even, so, for that property.
So just so we understand, there's at the right where Trojan Point kind of starts turning and heading north, there's like a solid black line that's got green in the middle where the parcel is. So your street is going to go straight across there, or?
Does this have a laser pointer?
It does, it's the top green button.
The green, okay. Yeah. So this was the previously approved alignment. So the new alignment comes basically right here.
And it's already there.
And it is, it's been, yeah. So I think this, I don't know, this may just be from the assessor's page, the county assessor. They've got the old alignment in there. They haven't updated it on the county assessor page at this point in time, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, is there anybody else in the audience for the public hearing that would like to come down and say anything? Okay, Councilmember Rick.
Question about Trojan Point Way. Is that going to be one lane or two?
Tim McConnell with Drexel Burrell again. It is a two-lane section, one in each direction.
Okay, that's all I had, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Estes?
And I just want to reiterate, I understand the concerns from our Highgate Farm residents, but it doesn't matter where the road is, we wouldn't have a say in that because they fall under a different set of rules. Is that correct?
Correct. There is a limitation in terms of what the municipality has the ability to permit and not permit. As representation from School District 8 indicated, they had received approval for the location of Trojan Point as shown on the vicinity map for clarification of the parcel. That does not get recorded against the parcel and has no bearing on any kind of future development. That's just to represent the location of the parcel being considered for the rezone. They also did receive right-of-way permits from city engineering to access Jimmy Camp Road.
Okay, please come down.
Again, Donna Wall, Highgate Farms. Where our retention pond is and the path comes through, there has previously been a stop sign on Trojan Point Road, and there have been speed limit signs. Gone. They're all gone. And the speeding does continue through there with construction traffic and any other people that are driving on that road. So can we get those signs back and enforce them?
Okay, I want to make sure we understand. So where Trojan Point comes out straight now to Jimmy Camp Road, you're saying there used to be a stop sign there for the construction traffic, and that
There
is?
used to be a stop sign where our retention pond trail is that goes to Trojan Point Road.
Okay.
There used to be a stop sign there, so the kids, when they're crossing,
Oh,
the vehicles
okay.
had to stop. There also used to be 10 mile, I think it was a 10 mile an hour speed limit signs on Trojan Point Road, and those
Okay.
are no longer there.
Okay.
And they do speed through there, primarily the construction workers, but,
People speed everywhere
I know,
anymore.
but,
Oh, my
you
goodness,
know,
yeah.
that's the school
So-
zone.
Okay, I think that's a very fair question. Will school district come up and answer that, please?
Hello, yes, Adrian May, District 8, and that is a fair comment. As we have been grading recently and moving dirt to try and place it where it needs to be for correct drainage and such, some of those signs have been temporarily moved, but I know a couple of them still exist in one direction. But we're absolutely, and I will put a rush on trying to get those limits back up. For the record, any road on school district property is a maximum of 10 miles an hour, and all of our contractors are supposed to know that. I won't say that they all follow that, but we certainly do try and enforce that, and we will make sure that we get some signage back up there.
Well, many construction signs will use a temporary barricade, whatever you call those things, to put a stop sign on it. So even if you can't have the post up, is there a way you could put one on a temporary one that could be,
We will figure it out.
Okay.
We will make sure something gets up.
and then Chief Christiani, if our SROs could maybe assist somehow with the construction traffic?
Yeah, it's private property, so there wouldn't be any official enforcement we can do, but obviously with school resource officers, we put a patrol car out there, we'll get some compliance, which is what you're looking for.
Right, because we want the kids safe. That's the bottom line.
And we have notified
If, ma'am?
construction people.
Okay, well, so if they do see people speeding, or if the sign is missing, who would they, can we get a contact for them?
So that would be our, my office, our maintenance office, where we control all the construction activities. And I believe our citizens know that number, but I can put it for the record. It's 719-382-1325, and that's our maintenance desk.
Okay. All righty. Speeding concerns, though, Chief Christiani, would they just call the non-emergent line for PD, or what would you like them to do?
I would actually prefer, the non-emergent line's probably going to get you a undesirable result, because they're going to say it's private property. So I would say you could certainly go right into the school and talk with our SROs directly, and they'll help you out.
We can accommodate that. We can help make sure that that gets to our SROs that are on site for wherever that is.
Okay. But if they're speeding down Jimmy Camp to the school or from the school, you can sure give them a ticket, huh?
Game on.
All right. All right. Is there any further comments from anybody in the public, staff? Okay, any further comments from council? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing. And what would council like to do with ordinance 1794? Councilmember Duncan.
I motion to approve ordinance 1794 on first reading.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Rick.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on ordinance 1794. Is there any further deliberation from council? Seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, and again, I know you may not feel like you're getting the same results from the school district that you want, but since they will be doing the planning, keep an eye on their agendas for when these things are coming up. And I know from my years as representing Ward 1, I spent a lot of time with a lot of people at Highgate. There are concerns with the school district in communication, especially when it comes to large events, graduations, and different things. So I would encourage D8 to work with their neighbors right there next door as much as you can. Let them know when things are going to be happening, and it's going to be difficult to get in and out of their neighborhood. And let's just all really, really try really hard to be good neighbors. So, all right? Okay. That takes us to item 10, City Council Agenda Requests. And I'm going to start with Councilmember Duncan because I think she already has one.
I don't know exactly how to word it, but I do know that, based on the conversations that I had with Mr. Linder, is that, we look at, let me find my notes, it was public comment. Look at the time frame from public comment, and that, also to evaluate, when it was put in place, because I would like to know that, and also the information that our city clerk gave.
Okay, so that's a request from Councilmember Duncan to the rest of the council to add an agenda item as a discussion item in another council meeting for looking at the public to be heard, possibly changing the time of that. What would council like to do with that? Okay. All right, so it looks like you have a consensus. I'd just like to remind people that we also need to consider the citizens that come that want to say their piece and go home, and they may not want to sit through an hour's worth of testimony. So, kind of be thinking of everybody in that. So, but I think it's super important if we have some people concerned about that to have a discussion on it. Okay, all righty. Is that your only agenda request item? Okay, Councilmember Applegate. Do you have an agenda request item? Councilmember Estes?
I have one. I would like to request a proclamation declaring for honoring the museum for their 20 years in December, because they will celebrate their 20th year as the Historical Society here in our town.
Okay, that's a request. Everybody okay with that one? Proclamation? Okay. All righty. Councilmember Corey.
Nothing tonight.
Okay, Councilmember Rick.
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor.
All right, and I have nothing. That takes it over to our city clerk for item 11.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. I'd like to request an executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-424 for the purpose of review, approval, and amendment of executive session minutes, and pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-424F for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees, and this item is for the annual review of the city manager.
Okay, we have a motion from the city clerk to go into executive session. What would council like to do? Councilmember Rick?
Second the motion.
Okay, and Councilmember Duncan? That actually was a first.
You
made the motion?
I move we go into executive session.
Okay. All
I
right.
second.
Okay. Anybody want third? Yeah. All righty. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, so we're going to take a break. It's now 5 minutes to 8. If everybody could be back at 5 minutes after 8, we will. You want me to adjourn first? Yes. Okay, we can adjourn the meeting. All right, then we'll be back.